Okay, I'm reacting to a video by just a dude practicing on YouTube, and he practices guitar every day, not live, but semi-live. Semi-live, he records himself and immediately uploads it. Practicing for 2 hours, and at the moment he's practicing my books. Well, actually he did finish a book, and there's another book he's working on, but he's working on the methodology that I propose in the books to learn to improvise in a jazz context. Could be gypsy jazz, could be normal jazz. And he practices every day, almost every day. And then at the first of the month, he does a progress report. And I like to react to that report, of course, because it is interesting for me to see somebody sharing his thoughts on my methodology and his or her progress with it. Okay, let's go.
Hi, this is Just a Dude Practicing. This channel is the real-time, riveting tale of a dude trying to get better at gypsy jazz guitar. So I upload every single practice that I do. Basically, every moment that I touch this guitar is on the channel. So the overall...
He didn't say anything that I should react to, but I want to, just for if you watch this, a lot of people, when they talk about my books or talk about me, it's like this: a gypsy jazz guitar player. But he also made the bebop book. They say now, because before I had that, they always said gypsy jazz player. But to be honest, my playing style is not very typical gypsy jazz, in the sense that my influences are all over the place, and only part of it is gypsy jazz. Now, it is true that I started with that, and of course, when I have a gypsy jazz guitar, then it seems very obvious. But if you listen to my solos, it's really a 50-50% split, I'd say, between gypsy jazz on one side, and then we're talking mainly about Stochela Rosenberg and a bit of Django. And on the other side, it's very much bebop influenced, with people like Martijn Verietensen, Pasquale Grasso, of course, and non-guitar players even like Bud Powell and Charlie Parker. And there's even a bit of Peter Bernstein in there. So I'd say this fusion is not very typical gypsy jazz. Now, it doesn't mean that you couldn't learn how to play gypsy jazz from my books. You could, but if you buy a book of mine, and Gabriel's here talking about book 2, it is also a mix. Book 2 is a mix between gypsy jazz and bebop as well, because in this book, it's just phrases that I like, part of a collection of mine, and it's a 50-50 split. Maybe it's even a little bit more on the bebop side. Now, book 3, it's only Django, right? And book 4 is only bebop, but book 2 is a split.
Overall goal is to be good enough to gig, and that means playing both rhythm and soloing. And right now, and for the last several months, I've been working exclusively on soloing. So this is my monthly progress report, and in these progress reports, I like to look at what I'm working on, how things are going, what's improved, challenges I'm dealing with. And the idea is to do this on the first of every month, but this time I have to do it a few days early because I'm leaving tomorrow for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, if you watch this when it comes out, I'm not sure when it comes out. Might be later today. I have to edit it a little bit and upload to YouTube because this is a live stream. He is in Korea right now, or he just came back, and I think he said he was gonna start again on the 6th of June. So he took 2 weeks off. So if you go to his YouTube channel and say, well, he didn't upload for the last week or something, or 2 weeks, it's not because he stopped. It's because he took a break for a work trip.
So the first question...
Bye, Gian. See you next time.
...is, am I better than I was a month ago? So I don't know. I think probably a little bit. I'm still practicing about 2 hours a day. I think in the last 28 days or so, I've missed maybe a day or two. I've had a couple of practices that had to be a little bit short, where I started practicing late in the day, because I try not to practice after 8 p.m. for the neighbors and people upstairs and downstairs. So when I was working on book 2 of the Van-Hemert system, and if you look at any of my videos, that's basically what I'm working on, is stuff from Christiaan-van-Hemert's, his system for how to solo in jazz and gypsy jazz.
But sometimes people ask me, what's systematic about it? Why is it system? Isn't it just a bunch of licks? But no, it isn't. Yes, there are phrases in the book. I usually refer to them as phrases. Seems to be a more well-liked term. But you can say licks, basically the same thing. But what the systematic thing about it is that they are categorized according to places on the guitar. So if I talk about 2-5-1 phrases in a certain position, that means that your hand is always there. So that's the first thing. But the second thing about it is, by the way, don't underestimate that, because I think it's different from what I've seen so far, where people categorize it more per some theoretical aspect of the guitar, like it's on the third or something. And mine is really in a certain place on the guitar. Of course, there's also a note there, so you could say the fifth and you could say the third. It's what I say. But that's the only thing or time that I say that. For the rest, it's just, it's all around the third fret or something, if we're in the key of E flat, something like that. And the second thing, systematic thing, is that it proposes a methodology for practicing. And it doesn't only propose it, it forces it on you. How? Because if you finish certain exercises, which are all about drilling sets of phrases that are in the same position, and you cannot skip any phrase, right? It's not like, okay, I don't like the third phrase, I'm not going to do the third phrase. Now you have to do all of them in the exercise. Then you send me a video and I review the video. And if I think it's good enough to pass, I give you a new level in my Discord. So you unlock levels like in chess, right? So you get master in chess, right, until grandmaster. In my Discord is jazz master until jazz super grandmaster. There are 7 levels. So so you gain some kind of authority in the Discord with your title. You can visible title and another color of your name. Also, you get access to more material by doing that. So this system forces you to practice, and that's the whole point, right? It doesn't really matter even what you practice. Well, it does matter. So I give you nice materials to practice, but even if you finish the book, you could use that practice methodology with other materials. And it just forces you to put in the hours, which is in the end the most important thing. Putting in the hours. And it's difficult to do because people get bored. I get bored too. But by gamifying this whole thing, it's like you're playing some kind of quest game, like World of Warcraft, where you have to beat some bosses to get the next level. And then you get loot, you get rewards, you get a transcribed solo, you get a PDF with intros by Peter Bernstein, something like that, So this practice reward system is a system.
So when I was working on book 2, progress was really obvious, right? I had exercises to do. There were clear improvements in my technique, in my stamina. If I couldn't do an exercise last week, within a week or 2, I could generally do it pretty well.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as clear cut right now, if I'm making progress. I do feel like my technique is getting more solid.
And this is a difference between classical practice or any other music that is written down, right? Or let's say composed, that you don't have to improvise. It's a difference between that, classical Irish music. Irish music is also not improvised. Maybe it's not written down, but it's not improvised. Or tango or something. And then the other side, it's like jazz or bluegrass or blues or, well, any other style where you improvise on chord changes. That's important. So if you improvise on chord changes, a lot of the practice is very conceptual. It's like you have this phrase or you have this concept and you're going to try to train yourself to play that on a certain chord progression. But although it seems that this would work the same way, like, okay, today I'm going to practice playing on the 2-5-1 to B flat. In practice, it isn't. Because when you are on the gig or the jam, and you play all these songs, right, and you have all these possibilities, it's very difficult to actually come up with what you practiced on the spot, especially continuously, so that you have a very flowing solo, because you need to find the connections, you need to find the timing, you need to find the phrasing, you need to find playing the groove of playing with someone else. There's lots of things you have to take care of. Maybe someone wants to trade with you, so they play 8 bars, then you play 8 bars, right? And then they play 4 bars, you play 4 bars. All of these situations require you to have this language of improv be automatic almost. Like it's like you're speaking your native tongue, right? You don't have to really think about what you're saying. You just say it, and it all feels natural. Now, to get good at this, compared to learning a second language, it's gonna take a long time. And with classical practice, of course, it's gonna take a long time to get good. But in between, there are so many things that you can accomplish. Like, okay, I'm gonna practice this skill, gonna practice this etude, gonna practice this beginner concerto, right? I'm gonna practice the first page of the sonata or something. Or I'm gonna practice this Irish reel, like the first 8 bars. And then maybe after 2 days you can do it. So if you do my book, you practice like a classical musician almost. But there are some differences, right? Because there's a lot of work with backing tracks and metronome and swing time and stuff. But the structure is the same. So you'll definitely make progress. And I think it's important to have this, especially in the beginning stages of learning jazz, to feel that it is possible to play all of this nice stuff, first of all. Now, to improvise it is a whole other story. And that's what Gabriel's doing now, because he finished book 2 and he's trying to implement the material in book 2 into improv. But now he gets to that stage where most musicians or jazz musicians are perpetually. It's like where you try to learn a new concept and try to be part of your system. Sometimes that's a process of years, right? So it's a tough road, but I'm happy that he felt the beginning stages of progress with the book, because that's the point. And now it is gonna be a more difficult, slower climb.
Some licks and phrases that I've been playing for a while now feel more natural. I know or understand a few things that I didn't last month. So, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So, change number 1 of the last month. I changed picks. And that might not seem like a big deal. I mean, unless you're a guitar player, in which case you know that it is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
So I was using a 2mm pick for years. But someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, I think, in a comment about using picks, and they said, "Well, you know, does the thick pick ever feel unnatural?" And it turns out they were using either a 3 or a 3.5mm pick. And I thought about it, and I wrote back, and I said, you know, a lot of people are using thinner picks, and if you look at a list of the top players, almost all of them are using picks that are under 2mm. And in writing that, I got to thinking, I'm like, well, so why am I using a 2mm pick? If everyone else is using, a thinner one, why don't I try it? So I changed that day. I ran to a kind of a local guitar shop. So I'm now using the Dunlop Gator Grip 1.5mm, the green.
That's a great pick, by the way. So a couple of things I can say about this. I actually started with this pick that he's holding, the Gator Grip 1.5. And the reason I started with that pick, no. In fact, I started with the Gator Grip 2.0. That's actually the pick that he was playing with in the beginning. I started with that pick just because it was very cheap and easy to get. And of course, I could hardly play, right? So I figured, let's just take one that I can get like around in the store around the corner. I'm not kidding. There is a guitar store very close by. And what am I going to do with a 80 euro specialized pick? I'm just trying to get my fingers on the right strings. So I started with a 2.0 pick, 2mm. And then somebody said to me, I don't remember what it was. I know, jamming, beginner jam. And we were comparing picks, and there were lots of people, by the way, with bigger picks. I'll talk about that later. But there was someone who said, you should really try a thinner pick and 2.0 because you will get more projection, a little bit brighter sound. So in a jam session, you have it will be easier to be heard. And I tried it. I bought this pick that he has now, 1.5 Gator Grip. And at first I didn't like the sound because, it was more bright. It was more, it felt with less body. So at home, I wasn't happy with it. But then I did notice that when I started jamming, that it was easier to be heard. So then I got used to the sound and I was devoted to this pick. I even made a video about it back in the day with Brett Bros. We talked about this pick because he also changed from a 2.0 to 1.5 because of me. Because I said to him, you should really try this 1.5. So we made a video that we both played with that pick, the Gator Grip. A funny thing about it is that I never knew why it was called the Gator Grip. Of course, when you see the pick now, there is a gator on top of it. But I didn't know. So I said in that video with Brett, I said, I don't know why it's called a Gator Grip. I said, because there's a dinosaur on the pick. And Brett said, no, that's a gator. That's an alligator. So then somebody made a lot of those picks with a dinosaur on it, especially for me or for us. It was funny. I don't know where they are, but I should try to get one. But the sad thing is I don't play with it anymore because then I changed to the pick that Stochelo plays with, the Big City, the Wegen Big City. I never played with the very thick Wegen 3.5 millimeter. I just felt like they were unwieldy and there was too much pick noise. Now the way to get rid of the pick noise is by squeezing harder. But I don't want to squeeze. I don't want to squeeze here. If you squeeze here, a lot of tension can come into your arm. So I didn't like those big picks, but then I switched to the Wegen 1.8 Big City because Stochelo played with it, and I was, of course, and still am, a big fan of Stochelo. And I love that pick. For many years, I love that pick. I think most of my videos that on my channel are played with that pick. But those picks, they last for some time, but not very long. And then you have to buy new ones, and they're €5 per pick, which is not a lot compared to the really thick picks or some picks that people play with. But they're still way more expensive than the Dunlops, right? These Dunlops are 50 cents. So the Big City is €5. And I kept losing them also on gigs. And then I was at the gig and I couldn't find one. And I had to play with a Dunlop anyway, and I wasn't comfortable. And at one point it was, you know what? I'm just going to switch to a Dunlop pick. Makes it much easier. Also, it works great on an archtop and a Gypsy Jazz guitar. With the Wegen, sometimes I felt like it wasn't really working on an archtop. So I thought, am I going to go back to a Gator Grip? And I was thinking about it, but I actually don't know any pro that plays with a Gator Grip. There must be some, but I was thinking about Adrien Monniard and Gonzalo Bergara and Sebastien Giniot, Antoine Boyer, all of those people. They all play with the Dunlop Delrin, this one, right? And they don't play with the 2.0, they play with 1.5. Although there are some people that play with 2.0. I did some concerts with Sebastien Giniot. He was playing a 2.0. I know that Amati Schmidt uses 2.0, but most people play with 1.5. And I was already used to this concept of 1.5 have more projection, so I bought a pack of the purple Delrins, and you can buy like 72 for, I don't know, for €30, and so you will never run out. And I got really used to this pick, and I love it. So I've been playing with this pick now for about 1.5 years. In the beginning, I kind of switched between the Wegen and this one because I felt like the Wegen is a little bit louder. It is a little bit louder. And I thought I needed that in gym sessions. But I also noticed that with this pick, it's easier to do a lot of things. Like rhythm is easier. It gives you a little bit more control, I feel, than the Wegen Big City. And also, I don't know, there's something to the sound of this pick, which has body, but it's also punchy. Now I got really used to it, and I cannot actually switch to another pick. I play on the side, and I would recommend this to everyone. There's a turtle on. The pick is not made out of turtle shell, of course, but I guess this is an approximation. It's called Delrin 1.5. And I recommend it to everyone, even if you feel in the beginning it's not working. I promise you, if you give it some time, at one point, it's very tough to let go of this pick because there are so many benefits to it.
One. A lot of people are using the purple.
Yeah.
I think they're Delrins, but the Delrins are pretty slippery for me for whatever reason. So I like the grip on the Gator Grips.
I'm not sure if they're more slippery than the Gator Grips. they're more, yeah, the surface is a little bit more, maybe slippery is not the right word. I'm not sure what the word would be. In Dutch, we would say glad, or we would say in English, like smooth, you know. But that probably also helps with this sound that is nice. And the Getty Grips don't have that sound. I'm sure of that because I tried both. And like for projection, it's the same. But I think this has a nicer sound. And slippery, I don't know. You know, the point of the pick is wedged in my crease of my thumb here. So that prevents it from turning. And I play with the side. So I don't think if you do it like that, it could slip away.
So that has been, I feel like a massive change for me because I got so used to the 2mm that the 1.5 does feel very thin. It clearly has a brighter sound.
Yeah.
When I watch the videos back, when I'm making chapters, I can hear the difference. And when I'm practicing too, I can hear the difference. I don't notice any major improvements in speed yet, but it could be because I'm just not used to it. But yeah.
Get this one, man.
I mean, to sum it up, I changed because everyone else that I respect is using a thinner pick. So I thought, well, if it works for them, I should probably, you know, follow their lead. So yeah.
There are, of course, great players that play with thicker picks, right? Angelo de Bar, Paulo Schaefer, Aldo Soikeli. They have... Angelo de Bar, I'm actually not completely sure. But definitely Aldo Soikeli, Paulo Schaefer. Gizmo Graaf plays with a Guz, or now it's not a Guz anymore, but it's another pick made by gypsyguitars.de, which is modeled after the Guz. I think that one would be probably 2.0 also, but that's a completely different kind of pick. I can't really play with it because I don't like it, but yeah, Gizmo loves it. Moses plays with also a thicker pick. I think it's more like 2.5 or something. So there's definitely great players that play with thicker picks, don't get me wrong. But if it sounds just as good as a thinner one, and this thinner one is 1/10 of the price, because I think the picks that Moses plays with, they're like 40 euros or something. So it's not even 1/10. I mean, you could buy 80 of these picks. So just saying, I think it's worth it to get used to this pick, and now I really love it. I don't think I can't think of any other pick that I like better than this pick.
That's been a really big change. So I'm using the 1.5. Let's see, change number 2 of the last month. So I said in the last progress report that my left hand was starting to feel very stiff. I feel like I have almost a bruising in the knuckles of these fingers. And luckily, that's pretty much gone away. Like I can still feel something, but it does seem to be better now, and I'm not too worried about it.
Good.
I don't stretch as much during practice or before practice as I used to. And because someone mentioned, you know, stretching can actually aggravate early signs of can aggravate arthritis. And
I think that's the case. I think it's better to let your hands rest and warm up while playing the guitar and make those movements. I think stretching the hands like this, I don't think that's good for your fingers. I've never done that, and I've practiced my whole life for hours and hours every day. Multiple instruments, right? And I've never had problems with my fingers. But I was also told when I started violin to not stretch your fingers, but just to warm up on the instrument. I think that's better, right? You can feel if your hands are warm. If you have cold hands, don't try to force playing super fast or play with a lot of pressure, but warm up your hands. But I think the stretching might not be the best idea for your fingers.
I think I was starting to get early signs of arthritis. I didn't really rest. I wanted to, but every time I pick up the guitar, I just want to jump into, you know, soloing stuff. So I did spend a day, and this might have actually been 6 weeks ago or so. So it might have been in the last parts report. But I spent a day doing rhythm. And while I do need to work on my rhythm, I really just wanted to jump back into soloing stuff. So I did. Yeah, so as for why it feels better, I'm guessing it's because I'm not doing 2 hours of exercises, like straight through for the whole time, like I was doing with book 2. These days in my practice, there's a lot more pausing, there's a lot more thinking. I'm I'm putting backing tracks at 50% or 75%, really slowing them down to give myself a chance to figure out what to play over stuff.
Yeah.
So it could be that it's
improv.
not, my practices aren't as physically intense as they were when I was doing pure exercises.
Yeah, that's true.
But right, so my left hand is feeling better, but a couple of weeks ago, turns out I had something of a bulging neck disc. So 6 years ago, I had a herniated, which is affecting my right hand. That's the connection.
Okay.
So that is change 3, bulging neck disc. Not great.
No.
So 6 years ago, I had a
painful.
herniated disc in my neck, same spot, and it was really, really painful. My back, my shoulders hurt. My left fingers were numb for a couple of years, actually.
Wow.
So these two guys. And a few weeks ago, I started to feel a very similar, very familiar pain on the right side. So 6 years ago, it was on the left side. A few weeks ago, could start to feel it on the right side. Uncomfortable ache, uncomfortable pain in my shoulder, in the shoulder blade back here, numbness in these two fingers. It was very uncomfortable to practice for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I thought, great, I'm going to be stuck with this for another year or so like I was 5-6 years ago. I was tossing and turning at night. Holding the guitar was very uncomfortable. But a friend suggested this kind of physical therapy that I'd actually never heard of. And I won't really get into it because this is not a medical recommendation channel. I went into it very skeptical, but I figured, what, I'll give it a shot. And a week and a half later, zero pain in my shoulder,
that's
zero
great.
pain in my shoulder blade, into my back.
I'll remember that.
The numbness is down by 90%. So, hallelujah.
I was very lucky. I think I'm very lucky in my life to never had any physical discomfort from playing instruments, be it violin or bandoneon or double bass or guitar. I think something to do with it that as a child we were forced by our violin teachers to go to something called mensdiek. I'm not sure what it would be called today, but it's something akin to Alexander technique. It's like some kind of physical therapy, especially for musicians. And I was in a very strict environment for violin playing, classical violin playing, and we had to practice so much that for our own health we had to do this therapy, and we had all these movements to like work on our posture and stuff. Probably it helped me enormously. I hated doing it, by the way, but probably it helped me enormously avoid all kinds of injuries. And one of the concepts that were important was that you never should lock joints if you don't have to. So, right, like something like this, like locking this joint, or even if you press here very hard, then you're gonna lock your wrist probably also. Right? It's just if you start locking somewhere, you're gonna lock lots of more joints. And locking for a long time in a row, and when you practice, like me, like 6 hours or something, then you're gonna get injuries and pain. So I'm usually very relaxed when I play, and it's automatic. So it doesn't really help to people. Relax, right? Because if you are used to playing like that, it's very difficult to let go of it. I don't know what a bulging neck disc is, and also not the therapy. But if it helps, it's great. But one concept maybe to keep in mind for everyone is to try to avoid locking joints. Sometimes you have to. Maybe you want to do some tremolo or something, but if it's a short time, like a couple of seconds, it's okay. But if this is repeated for hours and hours, then it's a problem.
Pretty much back. So my hands are generally okay. There is still some numbness, but it's not preventing me from practicing or really interfering with my day-to-day. Although I can't really feel textures with the tips of these fingers, which is surprisingly inconvenient at times. You wouldn't think of it, but I do have to get used to it. So hopefully that goes away relatively soon. All right, change number 4. I kind of jammed. So
Look,
christiaan-van-hemert and everyone in his Discord, they've been telling me I need to jam. And
his
people,
pronunciation of my name is pretty good for a non-Dutch speaking person. People always ask, how do I pronounce your name? So let me say it for the people that are interested. It's Christiaan, It's double A. So in Dutch we have, if we say one A, we say A, and we have two A's, we say A. So it's Christiaan. There's also Christiaan with one A, but my name is two A's, Christiaan. And then in the Netherlands, we have a lot of last names of two words. One shorter word, usually van, or de of te, and it's no capital letters, so it's van. It's not Van, like Van Halen, which actually is also a Dutch name, but just made into an American name, but van. And then Hemert. He says it's correctly Hemert. A lot of people say Hemert, but it's Hemert. But he says Van. He says christiaan-van-hemert, but actually it's christiaan-van-hemert. You know, I don't really care about if you pronounce this correctly. I even changed the van to with a capital letter because, I mean, not when I'm in the Netherlands, but sometimes when I'm in a foreign country, I do that because otherwise it's too confusing for people to see a word in between two names and it doesn't have a capital letter.
In the comments too, you need to jam. If you want to get better, you have to go out and play with people. And I've been resisting it, and I'm still resisting it. And I explained in the last Bards report why. I mean, to sum it up, it's because if I can't successfully get through one course of a song in the comfort of my own home on my couch, what good is it going to do to be with real people, right? With that pressure, dealing with, you know, sound issues and nerves, maybe someone who doesn't know how to play rhythm or plays too loudly, or you know, their tempo goes up and down. Why add extra layers if I can't, right? Why try to run if I can't walk, essentially?
Well, I understand this reasoning, but let me view it from a different angle. It's not about adding extra layers. It's about having all the layers from the beginning. Because you don't want to add those layers which can ruin. I think all the layers influence each other, right? So let's say you are perfectly capable of getting through one chorus, like you say, at home with the backing track. Now you're confident you can do it. You go to the jam, you get nervous. It's loud, you know. There's a guy that you don't like. Your guitar, you can't get your guitar in tune because there's not enough quiet moments to tune your guitar, whatever it is, right? Maybe your pick feels extra slippery. Those layers will ruin that first layer of you being confident about it, and it will ruin it to such an extent that it will actually affect your level as a whole. So it's better to have all the layers from the beginning, like the nerves and the lack of confidence and the loud rhythm player. If you have it from the beginning, all the layers can grow together. And that was also the point of me saying to Gabriel, listen, you got to jam. It's because you got to expose yourself to that situation. And I compared it to chess. You can practice your chess opening at home, playing against a computer. You can practice several variations of it. But the computer's not gonna play the first pawn, you know, A2 and then B3, A3, B4, C3, D4. You know, like these really stupid things that you know are bad, but you've never encountered it, so you will lose to this guy, right? Happened to me. So you got to expose yourself to the situations from the beginning so that you can grow your skills together with your ability to jam. It has to all go hand in hand. But never forget, the reason why you're practicing at home is actually to play in jams or in gigs. So the sooner you can combine all of those things, the better.
But I did kind of jam.
That's good.
There's a guy who has a small bar down the street from me, and I haven't seen him in a long time, but he plays a bit of gypsy jazz. He actually plays a ton of instruments. He's got a cello and a hang drum and all sorts of stuff in his bar. And when I found out about the neck disc problem, it was, I don't know, like a week into it. I realized I couldn't exercise, couldn't go to the gym, so I needed to get out of the house and do something. So I went for a walk, ended up walking by his place. He was there. Within a couple of minutes of saying hi, we both had guitars, and we were jamming on Sweet Sue, which is the song that I was working on at the time.
Good tune.
And it was mostly a disaster, right? So jamming went about as well as I thought it would go.
Yeah, great. You see, so it went as exactly as you thought it would go. So that's great, because you had no expectations, or you had some expectations, but you didn't have the expectation of sounding good. So that's what I mean. Now all the layers are together. Like if you would have gone to the jam with the expectation of performing well, you would have been severely disappointed, but it was never going to happen. Like, there will be too many parameters that you couldn't control to actually perform well in that circumstance. So that's good. Now, it was a complete disaster. I wouldn't expect anything else, and you also expected it. Next time, it will also be a disaster. The next year will all be disasters, but the disasters will be less and less until in 2 years, you will never get to this disaster stage again. It will be okay, okay-ish for the next 3 years. So better that you had this experience now than in 1.5 years when you were pretty confident about your playing on certain tunes, because it would have also been a disaster and it would have been much worse, like psychologically.
I couldn't really think of what to play. Again, there were rhythm issues, timing issues, right? Two people trying to figure out a song together.
That's great.
We tried minor swing. That was kind of the same problem. I just fell back into the same arpeggios, a handful of arpeggios that I've been playing for, forever.
And that's also good, because when you jam, here's the thing: when you jam, you're not practicing. You shouldn't be practicing. You should play what comes to mind. If nothing comes to mind, then don't play anything or play one chorus. If those arpeggios come to mind, play those arpeggios. Right? You're not trying to force the things that you practice, because that's not going to work. Because there's other things you got to take care of. You got to take care of your sound. You got to take care of the timing. You got to take care of your technique, playing clean. There's no time to think about this one phrase you were practicing. That will come later. Hey, Gabriel's in the chat. Hello, Gabriel. I'm just reacting to your video. And I'm now... we're talking about your jam experience. And you just missed the juicy part, but you can watch it back later. Let's continue.
Because I haven't tried minor swing since learning the Van-Hemert system stuff. So I did jam. It went just as well as I thought it would, which is not great.
Which is
all
good.
Right.
Huh?
Change number 5, composing solos. So I put up 2 new shorts on the channel yesterday, I think. And I spent a couple of hours on each chorus. Their chorus is over all the things you are. So what I was doing to practice soloing was Van-Hemert system stuff, which is basically you take a phrase, you put on a song, and you just play that phrase wherever it fits. And the idea is to just play it so much and hear where it needs to be played that it just becomes automatic, which is great. But I wanted to try something a little bit different. Actually, there's a song of the month. The song of the month on the Discord for May, I guess it's still the song of the month, was All the Things You Are. And I put it on the backing track. I tried to see if anything will come out, but there are just so many gaps in my understanding of what to play where. So a few days ago or last week, whenever it was, I decided, what, I'll just create a chorus. I'll give myself time to think. I'll give myself time to look up stuff, give myself time to...
Somebody questioned in my Discord if it was useful to do this, another member, because I talked about this with Gabriel in an interview situation or conversation video, which is also on my and his channel. And someone else said, is that useful to compose solo? Isn't that something that is not very beneficial to the actual process or practice of real-time improvising? But then I said, no, it's actually is very useful, because it is actually improvising, just super slow, right? You give yourself a lot of time to think about the next phrase. When you improvise, that's what you do, but it is real time. And it gives you the opportunity to actually play the phrases that you're practicing in the solo. And it is your own solo, because you composed it, right? So it is very similar to improvising, like the process, only it's super slow. And it has been done by many people. Stochelo, Rosenberg, first few years, that's basically what he did. Now, he cannot read or write music, but he would just sit down and figure out solos. Sometimes they grew in rehearsal. Sometimes he come up with something in the gig or something, but it was always something that's very deliberate, and then he would add it to the solo. He doesn't do that anymore because he doesn't need to do it, but in the beginning he did it. And I asked him once why he did that. I just want to know. He said, well, I was influenced by Wasser Grunholz, who was not maybe his teacher, but was the guitar player in the Sinti camp where he lived. That was the most senior, great player. Didn't really play in public, mostly played in the camp, but was a big influence on people like Stochelo, even Moses and Paulus, although they were, of course, also influenced by Stochelo. And that was what he did. He had just had solos on tunes that he always played. So Stochelo also started like that. Gonzalo did it as well. He also made a book about it, where he basically, it's a bunch of pre-composed solos. And I think I've heard him talk about it even. So it's a very common practice, not only in gypsy jazz, but also outside of gypsy jazz. In bebop, there's many examples of people that have done that. So don't knock it. It's a good practice. I've never done it to that extent, but I've done it for like, there was a difficult progression, something maybe dolphin dance. I was like, okay, let's figure out something to play over these 4 bars. You know? I think it's a good thing to do. It's not necessary to do, like you have to do it, but it can't hurt. I think it can only help.
You know, really, really slow everything down and just try to create something, right? Fill in the gaps in my misunderstanding, or gaps in understanding. So, yeah, it was really enjoyable. You can see them, like I said, on my shorts. So now that I've kind of done that and sat with All the Things You Are for a while, I feel like I'm more prepared to actually, actually improvise over.
I reacted to those All the Things You Are solos in my Discord. Those were really good solos. I mean, if you could improvise that in real time, and there's actually another member in my Discord who can do that in real time with my materials, which is even more impressive, of course. But that's just a matter of time, right? This is a guy that started with my books a year ago, but I think he has had a higher entry level, like he was already playing jazz. So he was already used to this concept of improvising more than Gabriel's. But he was also using my phrases on All the Things You Are video, but was improvised. But it was so good that I actually asked him, like, did you also pre-compose this solo? I said, no, it was improvised. So that just shows you that in the end, it's very difficult to tell actually if someone's improvising or pre-composed. If all the lines are really good lines and they sound exactly right, then you almost start thinking, hey, is this pre-composed? It's so good. But no, there are people that can improvise in a pre-composed way. Yeah, so I reacted to these solos that Gabriel made, and those were 2 very good solos. So go check out those shorts on his YouTube channel. Yeah, David Schenkerman, right? He improvised solos on All Things You Are. It sounded very similar to the pre-composed solos by Gabriel, but improvised.
Just because now I've slowed down enough, and I've taken enough time to understand what needs to go where, what needs to happen when. So yeah, it's kind of like learning a foreign language, right? Like one of the big suggestions for how to learn a foreign language is to keep a journal, right? And the idea is, in the comfort of your own home, right, you can quietly sit down and write things that have happened, write a journal.
Now that you talk about foreign language here, Gabriel, would you ever recommend to someone that's learning language to stay in his room and only practice the sentences until he feels he's perfect at that before he goes out into the world and orders a coffee or something? I don't think you would ever say that. You would say, okay, you learned to order coffee, now go out to this bar and do it. And then he will fail, right? And the other guy won't understand him, and it's a very embarrassing situation. But I think that is the idea, like, okay, then now go do it. Expose yourself to a loud cafe, a bartender that has maybe comes from another region or uses a different vernacular. You want to actually say to people, go out and start talking. And that's what you just entered the chat, but I was talking about the layers. You were talking about why should I add layers on top, but it's about having all the layers from the beginning, and the practicing, and the playing, and exposing yourself to difficult situations. And I think with language, it's the same thing. You want to immediately apply what you learned at home in the comfort of your own room in the real world. In that respect, it's exactly the same as learning a language. That's how I learned English.
and you get to think about it. You get to, really piece your thoughts together. So then later, when you're in a conversation, and you just have to, do it rapid fire, you're a little more prepared, right, to handle that. What else? Let's see. Oh, also apparently Stokello. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Stokello Rosenberg.
Good enough. Of course, he's also Dutch, right? So Stochelo Stochelo Rosenberg. There's lots of in there. So, but I think Stochelo Rosenberg is just fine.
Bergara, a few other people. Apparently, they've done the same thing, where they would just compose solos, and that's what they would play for a long time until eventually they were totally.
They're not perfect, but it's good to have a handle on the basics, vocab, grammar, listening. Otherwise, it's completely demoralizing to not understand a single thing. What is the basics though? It's very difficult to draw that line because I would say the basics are that you can say something, and then you go say that something in real life, and the chances that you will say it correctly are actually pretty small. In fact, what's going to happen is you say the thing, and then the other person starts talking back to you, asking for something that you really don't understand. It's an embarrassing situation. Happened to me many times. Ordering a cappuccino in Italy, and I have no intention to speak Italian, but I mean that situation happened with English as well. It's so long ago that I don't remember, but. The basics are different for everyone, so that's why I would say, or like the concept of basics. That's why I would say, if you finish the book of mine, the basics are already there. In the sense that you know what good timing is, you know how good vocabulary sounds. Doesn't mean that you can already apply it, but you know what it sounds like. You know how it works with the chord progressions. You know what a tune is. I think those are the basics. It's good enough for a lot of people to start jamming, and they sound absolutely horrible, but they still have no problem jamming. So I'd say I think you're already ahead of the curve in that respect.
Comfortable just improvising. So yeah, let's see what else. Eventually I'm going to get back to the Van-Hemert system of soloing, where you take a phrase and just play it wherever you think it'll fit. But I like the idea of composing solos with that system.
Yeah, that's great.
Again, it just gives you time to figure things out. Right? If you keep going back to the
that's
same
why the composed solos are in book 2 anyway. It's to show you an example of the phrases used in the solo. I was actually planning to do more composed solos. I still might do it, but I didn't do it. I think the reason I didn't do it is because I just want to write another book, And if I make a composed solo, it's the same materials in the book that I rearranged in order. It's interesting, but it's fun. It's more fun actually if the members of the Discord do it, because they'll come up with something completely different from what I did. So you basically did it with book 2 also, but you don't really need me to do it. I did it for book 2, but I think I'm not sure I want to do it anymore. I'd rather spend that time in writing a new book. But let's see what happens in the future.
Phrase, well, if you slow down, maybe you can come up with something a little bit better, which is what I found happened with All the Things You Are. Okay, change 6. So I was pretty successful with All the Things You Are. There were some issues.
Some minor issues.
But change 6 is that I completely failed yesterday trying to come up with another solo, another chorus for a different song. So for next month's, for June's Song of the Month and Christian's Discord, they chose If I Should Lose You, which is a song I've never heard of. I listened to a couple of versions. I don't recall ever hearing it. So I thought, you know what? Things went so well with All the Things You Are. Why don't I try the same thing? So I found the chords, found a couple of backing tracks, and I tried to create a solo and compose a solo.
Now, If I Should Lose You is actually pretty well-known standard, but I have to say it's not played all that often in jams. And it's not that difficult, but there's a lot of chords. If you look at the chord progression, there seems to be a lot of chords. But if you simplify it, there's not a lot of chords. So when I said, okay, it's gonna be it could happen to you. If I Should Lose You, I didn't really talk about the simplification, and I just gave a progression that I found online, or a backing track. But then when people started complaining about it, I think mainly it was you actually, because you were the only one to try it until now. Then, but I'm sure that David Schenkelman will also do it. I said, you know what, I'm going to make a video showing the simplification. And I uploaded this chart on my Discord with the simplifying. And it's really not very difficult. If you look at simplifications, it's maybe one of the easier tunes even, right? But you didn't know that, right? So you tried it to do it on all the chords, and then there is indeed some tricky aspects, like a dominant chain, which doesn't resolve to the 1, but resolves to the 6 parallel, and then there's a quick 2-5 for that. So there's lots of confusing things in the chart if you don't simplify it.
It just did not work, like, at all. Like, I couldn't... It wasn't that I didn't understand what I was seeing in front of me, like what the chords were. It was just I couldn't really seem to play or find anything to play that made sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Yeah, it starts with like G minor, and then there's a short 2-5, G minor. Oh. Well, so it starts G minor, and then there's a short 2-5, and then short 2-5 to E flat. So if you want to find lines for all of those chords, it's gonna sound either disjointed, or you just won't be able to find lines that fit. But if you think of it, okay, it's 3 bars of G minor, and then it's 6 bars of E flat, or 3 bars G minor, and then 1 bar B flat 7 to 5 bars of E flat, then all of a sudden it becomes much easier. Because you have to always remember the basic progression or functions, actually it's functions of the tune, can always be simplified to some kind of 1, 2, 5. And sometimes it modulates in the song, so there's multiple keys. But still, then it would be 1, 2, 5 in that new key. Now, If I Should Lose You, it's in G minor. There's parts in G minor, there's parts in E flat, there's parts in B flat. But it's all 5-1 or 2-5-1 in those keys. And if you know that a 2-5-1 can be simplified to 5-1, and the 5-1 can be simplified to just 1, then in the end you only have 3 chords left. So that would be the most basic simplification of pretty much any tune, is that you would have 3 chords left per key in the tune. So in If I Should Lose You, there would be 9 chords because it's 3 keys. That is the basic structures you can have in your head to improvise. Makes things very easy. Now, you won't maybe sound the most sophisticated that you can. So what you do then is you start adding in some more of the chords that were in the progression. Like, okay, now I'm just thinking 6 bars E flat. Let's add in some B flat 7. But now you will also discover you don't have to put the B flat 7 exactly where it was in the chart. I'm talking about soloing, right? If you do the chords, you have to follow what the progression says, because otherwise you're not playing the tune. The tune was composed, or maybe it was reharmonized by someone else, but it was really reharmonized to fit with the melody in a certain way and to make it more attractive to progression. But as a solo player, you can play with that. In fact, it's nicer. You can even add in chords that are not even in the progression. Like you say, okay, yeah, I can play B flat 7 in those 6 bars of E flat somewhere, but I can also do E7, which is a tritone substitute. That is obviously not in the chord progression, but it will sound nice because what you're all doing, like both the backings, the rhythm section, they are playing a variation of the basic functions. In their case, it's a composed variation because it's a tune, and you are playing another variation of the basic functions. And there's many possible variations of the basic functions possible, right? So every solo player can have their own little chord progression in their head. They can change it on the fly even. And even as an accompanist, if you know the limits, you can add something. Like let's say, I'll play If I Should Lose You. So it's G minor, and then 2-5, and then 2-5 to E flat. But instead of doing F minor, B flat, I could do F minor, E7, tritone, or I could even do F minor, B minor 7, E7, right? So that is a tritone too. I know in the limits I can probably do it, especially when I play like short chords, like something like that. It creates harmonic interest. Now, as an accompanist, you shouldn't go too far because now you're playing sounds like a different tune. But as a solo player, there are really no limits to what you can do. You can make it very simple, you can make it very complicated, and you can do all of that in one solo.
So yeah, nothing sounded good. I guess I'll try it again when I'm back from my trip. But yeah.
Yeah, check out the stream.
Huge solo composition failure yesterday.
Check out the stream, Gabriel, with the simplifications. Yeah, you write it. Yeah. Then probably you'll find it's easier than all the things you are.
That was kind of a downer. All right, change number, I guess we're on 7. Rhythm work. So I know that I need to relearn rhythm. And I was really reminded after that mini jam I had down the street, because I was playing rhythm. I just kept thinking, man, this something is not right. Like the bounce is just not correct.
The bounce.
So
you know what?
I've spent a couple of days in the last month.
Gabriel, I'm going to help you. Wait, I'll be right back. I'm going to teach you to play rhythm in 1 minute. Listen, there's 2 concepts you have to take care of. One is 4 to the floor, and the other one is downstrokes only. So 4 to the floor means that you want to have this bassy sound on all 4 beats. So you have to think of a drum set, and they have a bass kick drum, and they play the kick drum every beat, like doom, 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 doom. Of course, with the backers, it's like ding, 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 and the high, but it's doom, doom all the time. You don't really hear that if you listen to a band, because the bass player is also playing 4 notes, like do, 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 do. Now, if the bass drum would stop the 4 to the floor, then probably the band will look at the bass player, like, what are you doing? Did you turn your amp off? No, it's actually the bass drum that's doing the 4 to the floor. So I'm talking about swing music and bebop, right? After bebop, they start doing more complicated things with the bass drum. But in those styles where it's very important that there's this kind of jumpy beat, this 4 to the floor concept is very important. And as a rhythm player, you should have the same thing. So this thing, like the low, let's do D7, should be on every beat. So that's first concept. Second concept is that now you want to do only downstrokes. So you don't want to do upstrokes at all. Don't think about that. Now, to practice, just play G6 and D7 and do only 4 to the floor, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. To start. You hear the doom, doom, doom. And now what you do is, the only thing you change is, you keep this, but on the 2 and the 4 you give a little bit more sweep. So that the 2 and the 4 have a kind of an accent. So let's start 2 bars G, 2 bars D, only 4 to the floor, and then I would change to normal rhythm. So 4 to the floor. Normal rhythm. 4 to the floor. Normal. So, doesn't matter what you do, as long as you don't lose the 4 to the floor. So if you play Switsu, listen to the 4 to the floor. Instead of sometimes hear people do this. So now on the 2 and the 4, I had a lot of high strings, but I lose the low action of the strings, like the 4 to the floor feel. So practice rhythm like that. Practice songs and interchange between 4 to the floor and the normal rhythm, and see if you don't lose the 4 to the floor, even if you play normal rhythm. So everything short, everything half muted, and no upstrokes. Keep the tempo, and 4 to the floor. If it's fast, like let's say I play China Boy, yeah. Right? That's what you should hear. just focus on the four to the floor, that concept, and every time you feel you're losing the four to the floor, you're playing rhythm the wrong way. To start off. Okay, let's continue with the video.
Watching some videos and really slowing things down and trying to find the right movements for my right hand. But I gave it up pretty quickly. Again, all I wanted to do was go back to the soloing stuff. So what I'm thinking now is, what I keep hearing
practicing rhythm is
you
pretty
need
boring.
to really work on your rhythm, because when you're gigging or jamming,
practicing rhythm is of course a bit boring, but yeah, it's a prerequisite for jamming.
Whatever, that's what you're going to be doing 95% of the time.
Yeah.
So I figure, well, when I'm ready to do that, I'll just learn on the job, right? I mean, it's 95%.
Yeah. You can learn on the job, but just get the four to the floor. Get these three aspects: four to the floor, short chords, only downstrokes. Get those three things together. Now, the only downstrokes thing means that you shouldn't do another thing. It's not even something to practice, but resist the urge to an upstroke, because adding the upstroke makes things much harder, and also more sloppy. And we can talk about the upstrokes another time. But get the four to the floor under your belt. Learn some tunes, of course. Play the right voicings. There's videos of mine. But basically, you want to play as many voicings where you have the low strings. So don't start playing rhythm with these chords. Right? Just you want to have double bass almost. So when I play A7, I play 5, 4, 5, 6. It's a weird voicing with two C sharps, but it doesn't matter. It's the low strings. It's better than this voicing, right? Or those voicings are great, but they don't have the same growl. I call it growl. Every voicing should enable you to have a good four to the floor.
Of my practice time is going to have to go to soloing, even though 95% of the time.
And then the rest you can learn on the job, right? So that's true. So once you get the basics down, like you say, the rest you can do on the job. But so the basics are the four to the floor thing and the short chords.
Jamming or gigging, I'll be doing rhythm, but I think I can learn
Yes.
Rhythm on the job. I don't really think I can learn soloing on the job. So I'm kind of looking at...
Yeah, you cannot learn soloing on the job. That's not what you learn on the job. What you learn on the job is exposing yourself. Well, look at it this way, right? You've heard me say many times before, probably, that soloing on the job or in a gig or in a jam is not about your memory or about complex thoughts. It's about being in the moment and just playing what comes to you. It's very difficult to practice this, because when you practice, you're probably not in that state of mind, that in the moment playing. It's very difficult to do that, by the way, because when you are on the gig, you really want to play the stuff that you just practiced. So what you start doing is very natural. I've done it many times. Is try to think back about, what are we going to play? We're going to play Sheik of Araby. Okay, so then there's the dominant chain. Okay, I'm going to play the dominant chain lick. The chance that you actually succeed doing that is very small. And even if you succeed, you probably mess up some other thing, and you will lose focus for the rest of the tune. So it's best to be in the moment. And then you have to do that many times before things start appearing. So the more times you can expose yourself to the situation where you are in the moment, the sooner the time will come when you start playing things that you practiced. Because in the moment playing is so different from practicing at home. So only for that reason alone, like that in the moment feeling, connecting to your creativity, let's call it that, your musician's muscle in the moment, requires most of all experience of being in the moment. And and it takes, so somebody asked me on the workshop that we just did, somebody asked me, like, do you ever have bad days, like you feel you can't play? Yeah, of course I have bad days, but I have had so much experience playing good stuff in the moment that I would never doubt that I can come up with good stuff in the moment. I know that will happen. Now, some days it might be genius, some days it might be on the lower side of the good box, right above mediocre. But I know it will be in that box somewhere, right? It could be on the top end, it could be in the low end. But it's always in this box because I've had so many experience of being in the box. But I didn't get in the box immediately. Like even when I was already on top of the game, let's say mentally, I knew all the tunes, I knew all the good phrases. I'd still have lots of days and jams and gigs where I was in the box right below it, mediocre. And it took me a long time to get in the good box. So you have to expose yourself to that pile of boxes as soon as possible. And for a long time, you will be in the complete disaster box. But it's fine. As long as you're in the moment, it's good. And you practice at home, you keep practicing, you keep working on your craft, so to say. You keep doing the aim training. You keep doing the aim training, the 360 shooting and the tracking. And then you go into the real game and you see if you can make it happen. And it won't happen for a long time, but finally, after 4,000 games, you do manage to track another player perfectly. That is the same thing. It's the same thing with all those skills that require a lot of decision making in the moment, right? Decisions that you really cannot practice at home, and that's most sports. But actually, jazz improvisation is very similar.
Here and there, rhythm. I keep thinking, I need to spend a few more days on it. Maybe like a day a week or a few minutes of each practice. But I haven't been very good with any sort of
one way you could do it, Gabriel, is just learn a new tune. Just go to my Discord with the 20 tunes that you got to learn, and just learn a new tune, and then work on learning the tune at the same time as you practice rhythm.
Structure like that. Next change, whatever number we're on. Excuse me. I've been working on book 3 of the Van Hemert system. One moment. So I finished book 2 a couple of months ago, or I don't know, 7 weeks ago, and I've been working on book 3, which is 1930s Django vocabulary, licks and phrases. And
I said Django for the longest time, by the way, but so many people got angry with me. Like, he's French, it's Django. But, they're right, of course, it's Django. So I've trained myself to say Django. So I recommend also to start saying Django. It's so easy to say, Django does sound, now that I've got used to saying it myself, of course I would say Django as a Dutch person, but then I went on YouTube talking about it and was speaking English all the time. I started saying Django because everybody was saying Django. But then somebody pointed out to me, why are you saying Django? His name is Django, and you're not American. And I was like, there's a point to that. So now when I hear other people say Django, I think, it's just an easy change to say Django. So, yeah, just say Django.
I've sampled a bunch of chapters, some really, really cool stuff. So I'm not as focused on book 3 as I was on book 2, though. I haven't submitted any exercises yet. And you can see it in my other progress reports. But basically, the way it works is each chapter has a set of phrases. Like the first chapter is major phrases or licks. Second chapter is 5-1 resolutions. And what you do is you take those licks or those phrases as a set and you play them all keys, in all keys against a backing track. And it's very difficult. It takes a very long time to not make too many mistakes. You send that video to Christiaan-van-hemert. He gives you notes and you either pass or you're told to do it again.
No.
So I will eventually, but I'm kind of...
Of course, when you start doing that, you're doing it for the Discord titles, right? You gain some authority. We just had a new Jazz Super Grandmaster. That's the highest level you can get. Very difficult to get there. Just yesterday, there's the newest one. It's the 8th one only. If I compare it to the amount of times the book has sold, that's very few people. But it makes sense. It's more than I expected, actually, that people would do it. It takes a lot of time to practice to get to. I'm not there. I haven't practiced that. I could do it probably, but again, I just spent the time on making more materials. But to get there is really an achievement. Now, then you get a book for free, right? So he got book 3 for free. But now you might say, well, what's the reason then to do the exercise? Well, it's beneficial for your own playing, of course. But now it's for a leaderboard, and you get points, right? And if you play the exercise perfectly, you get 100 points, and if you make a mistake, you get 50 points, like stuff like that. But that's less of a drive, of course, unless you want to get on top of the leaderboard. Because David Schenkeman, who was the first Jazz Super Grandmaster, is also on top of the leaderboard. He has like 400 points. I think, Gabriel, you're also on there because you did an extra composed solo, so you got like 50 points or something. And there's now 6 people on the leaderboard, all right? But I hope, because it's fun, that somebody tries to get to number 1 spot and there's a competition. I think it's good for everyone practicing, but it's also fun to see. I can't do it because the rules is you can only participate in the leaderboard if you're at least a JIM, a Jazz International Master, which is 2 levels below the level that Gabriel is at, right? You get Jazz International Master, you get Jazz Grandmaster, and Jazz Super Grandmaster. Right? You can have these titles, but I mean, it's something in the Discord. You have those letters in front of your name. It's just like chess, right? When you have like Magnus Carlsen says GM Magnus Carlsen. So in my Discord, it's also JSGM Gabriel, for example, because he's a Jazz Super Grandmaster. There's only 8 of those people. They have a different color. But now there's also the leaderboard. I'm trying to put the leaderboard more into attention. I put it on the top of my Discord channel, of the channels, because I think now is the time actually that it's going to be used. Now that there are a couple of Jazz Super Grandmasters, there's a couple of Grandmasters, a couple of International Masters. So, Gabriel, that's the reason to do it, right? But I can also understand if you're now working on improv skills that the priority of finishing these exercises is not there anymore. That's also the reason why I haven't done the exercises or the challenges. Of course, I demonstrated them in the videos with the book, but I usually don't demonstrate the complete exercise. Because for me, it also takes a lot of hours of practice to do it. Just for everyone else, because most of the phrases are new to me. They're part of the transcriptions that I made for the book, that I handpicked, of course, and I played to demonstrate them in the videos to show how they sound. But it doesn't mean that I can do a set exercise in 12 keys with 8 different phrases. That's a long time. And I always say, I'm going to do it. But then, again, I spent that time on just practicing improv or writing the next book. But there's part of me that wants to do it because I actually want to compete for a leaderboard. I am top of the leaderboard with the technique exercises, at least there, and the rhythm exercises, but not for my books. So one of these days, I'm gonna do it.
And I'll talk.
Passing a chapter is such a good feeling. Yeah, I've heard it many times before, and I can really understand it because it has taken you so many hours to practice and then putting the video camera on. I mean, it's
With this in a couple of minutes, but I'm kind of juggling a lot of things right now when I practice. But just some thoughts. In a way, I feel like book 3 is more difficult than book 2.
Definitely.
But it could be my imagination.
No.
It could just be that I'm not used to the licks.
No, book 3 is very difficult. Of course, the first chapter is very easy, but it gets more and more difficult. There's one person in my Discord right now, Martin Herzog. He's at this point, he's a Jazz Grandmaster, I think. Yes. Yeah, so he needs to get to Jazz Super Grandmaster, and he's only doing a book 3. And I mean, it's taking him a long time because these exercises, they get crazy difficult. Because Django is sweeps so much. There's so much sweeps. And to make that sound good with good timing and clear technique, there's a reason why the book 2 phrases are easier. Those are actually phrases that come directly from my vocabulary. And I picked those phrases because they're comfortable. They're really nice phrases, right? They sound super nice, but they're comfortable to play. With Django, there's no compromise. It's just Django, and it's difficult to play. And book 4 is even more difficult than Bebop, because there's really a super long set exercise in there. They're so long, even that I had to at one point say, okay, I'm going to simplify the set exercise, because otherwise it would be impossible. So book 2 is definitely the easiest, and then book 3, more difficult. Book 4 is even more difficult.
Like I was with, like I am with book 2. It could be that I'm not spending as much time on it, as I was with book 2. But I'll tell you, the rhythm of the licks or the phrases, the timing, I feel like it's a lot trickier. Probably because it's Django stuff, right? Yeah. So it's not, straightforward. There are a bunch of sweeps that are very difficult. A lot of bends.
Yes.
And all of my bends sound like what motion sickness feels like. Every time I bend, I just get this feeling like, oh God, that's not right.
With Django bends, the trick is to not do it too fast. If let's say you have a 2 of 1 to I think this is in the book. So you have a 2 of 1 to D, E minor, A7, D, and then there's this lick 1, 2, 3. You don't want to bend like this. You want to bend slowly. But you want to hit the note in tune. So there's two things. You want to bend not too fast, and you want to hit the note. If you do that, a good thing to practice, that little phrase, like in D. You want to go to the F, and you want to bend back. But you don't want to bend too fast. So that's the bend stuff. But you're right here. There's bends, there's sweeps. The rhythms of the phrases are sometimes very unpredictable. And now imagine that you have to play 6 of those things in 12 keys. It's very difficult. Gian Compuesto, for his Jazz Super Grandmaster title, did chapter 7, I think, which is extremely difficult. So I think, didn't Onio also do that? No. Forget that. No. But Gian did that. But Gian didn't do leveled only book 3. He did the first 2 levels using book 2 and then switched to book 3. That is also tricky, but it's not as tricky as what Martin Herzog is doing with only book 3. I wonder if there will be somebody that's only doing book 4, because that's even harder.
But yeah, I mean, book 2 also felt really difficult.
It is, of course.
I didn't think any of the exercises would ever feel comfortable or sound quite right to my ears, but now they all do. Right now they sound like they make sense. So maybe the same will happen with book 3. All right, the next change I mentioned a moment ago is...
The funny thing is, I'm only getting a handle on book 3 myself now. I wrote that book, I think I launched it at the end of November or something. I don't remember actually. No, earlier, because I brought the book to the UK festival. That was in October. So in October, I finished the book in October, and I made all the videos. I remember making the videos was very tricky to do. Not as tricky as for the Bible book, but still, it was very tricky to do. And now it's not until now that I start playing some of those things in solo. So I was teaching that camp in Stuttgart for the past few days. We played some little concerts, and now I'm starting to play those phrases. But it took a very long time, and I actually have been practicing those phrases because I love those phrases. But at one point I was like, oh, this is never going to happen. It is the funny thing. I know exactly how it works with jazz improv, right? And learning it. And still can fool myself. Sometimes I say, well, this stuff probably never going to appear in my playing. But now some of the stuff is appearing. Specifically some of the Christoph changes and some of the dominant change. Like this thing, let's say you have a coquette, so then there is in the bridge there's E7, A7, and then I played a couple of times that one and also this one. That stuff is pretty tricky to play, and now it feels very natural, but I practiced it so much and I never played it. But finally, the past few days, I played it.
I feel like I'm juggling a lot of practice materials.
And I didn't force it, right? I didn't force it. It just came to me when I was playing it. And the funny thing is then this first phrase came to me all the time. And then I had to actually stop myself playing it because... And I know that's the moment that the phrase is part of my system. When it starts appearing all the time. And then I actually have to tell myself, okay, listen, there's other stuff you can play. and then I have to kind of force myself not to play it, right? Of course, you have to play what comes to you in the moment, but you have to be smart about things like meta concepts, like, okay, don't repeat yourself too much. Because there's also other stuff coming to me, but then this phrase is at the forefront all the time, play me, play me, play me. And I love to play the phrase, but I don't want to play it every solo, and I definitely don't want to play it twice in one solo.
I knew this was going to happen. I've been going back to books 1 and 2 for review and upkeep, because I don't want to lose the stuff that I learned in book 2. And not so much, the note for note licks as just the technique, right? Like triplets. Triplets took me a really long time to get, and they're still just barely there. So I'm like, even with the triplets, I made sure to add them to my composed solo of All the Things You Are.
Yeah, that's really nice.
They sound cool, right? But again, I also wanted to force myself to keep playing them. Once you get triplets down, everything else becomes a little bit easier.
Yes.
I've also been working on book 3, like I said, trying to add in some rhythm, trying to do improv using the system where you take a lick, play it over backing tracks wherever you think it'll fit, trying to compose solos. It's all a big jumble right now. So, I mean, I haven't even gotten into things like memorizing songs, intros, outros, learning the heads to songs, that kind of repertoire stuff. So I try to schedule. Like, I have little notes on my phone where I'm like, all right, look, for the next few practices, let's break it down like this. You're going to spend, this much time here, this much time there. And I abandon that's kind of schedule immediately. As soon as I pick up this thing and start practicing.
Good.
I just can't help
my philosophy on practicing improv is, and that wasn't the philosophy from the beginning, because I was exactly like you, like, I'm going to do this thing, that thing, is only practice something that you want to practice. So of course you do your technique practice, and if you do my set exercises, that's part of like classical practice, right? It's just something that you do. But if you start practicing improv, you're trying to practice. You train yourself to do stuff in the moment. You don't want to spend that time on things that bore you, or you don't want to do. So I practice something exactly the amount of time that I like it, because I also know that I'm not practicing it right now so that I'll be able to play it tonight. I like the book 3 phrases. I've been practicing for a long time, right? At least I started writing the book in the summer, so almost a year. And now, finally, 2 of those phrases, of the dozens and dozens of phrases that are in the book, appear in my playing. So I always know that I'm not practicing this thing now to play it tonight. No, I'm practicing it now because hopefully I'll play it sometime in the future. Might be next month, might be next year, might be never, might be in 5 years. So there's no point for me in to keep practicing that thing if I don't like it anymore. Better spend my time somewhere else on something else that I might be playing in 2 years. So don't worry about not keeping to a schedule. Just do what you want to do.
Do whatever it is I want to do.
Oh, well.
In that session. I guess this is why it takes so long to learn jazz. All right, the next change.
It's not why only you takes long to learn jazz. It's why it takes a long time to learn jazz improv. At let's just say, a good level. Of course, there's lots of people that can play. They say they play jazz, but then when they play solo, there's many weak moments in the solo, or there could be also a big thing that's not happening, like timing. But many weak moments in solo. So let's say to get to the stage where you are flowing, because we're talking about flow, right? You're flowing over the chord changes. That takes a long time. At least 5 years. But since you already have a good handle on technique and timing, I'd say 3 years. Because you don't really have to spend a lot of time there. You have to still think about it. And you have to still be aware of it. But you know how it works. Yeah, you know what good timing is. You know what good technique is. So the only thing you have to do now is be aware of it while you are practicing something else, or playing a solo, or on the jam. You have to still think about that. That's somebody asked me, what do you think about when improvising? I only think about one time. About one thing. It's timing. That's the only thing I think about, because that's the one thing that can mess up everything else. My technique, I'm confident about, because I do technique exercises a lot, or at least I've done them a lot. I'm not as much doing it anymore as I was. Still do it sometimes, but not every day. But I was doing it every day. I'm confident about my technique. It works. The lines are not important because I play what comes to me in the moment. But there's one thing I really have to pay attention to, and that's timing. It's like, am I playing my swing eighth notes on the quarter note that's implied by the music or by the rhythm section, right? Or by the rhythm guitar, whatever I'm playing with. If I'm playing with a bass that's only playing on 1 and 3, then he's giving me the first quarter note and the third quarter note. And I still have to fill in the 2 and the 4 in my head. And then I have to time my swing eighth notes on top of those 4 beats. So the only thing I'm thinking about is, okay, where is the quarter note pulse in the rhythm section? And how can I play a long and a short eighth note? Because that's what swing time is, right? Long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. How can I time, or am I timing my swing eighth notes on top of that quarter note pulse that's implied by the moment I'm in? That's the only thing I think about. The rest has to be automatic. And then there's, of course, the meta concepts like, okay, don't repeat yourself. Maybe it's time to play some chords. Maybe it's time to put some more rest. Maybe it's time to play some octaves. Maybe it's time to end your solo.
Is I think I'm finally getting a handle on altered lines. Now, I've been using altered stuff as my go-to example for things I don't know, right? When I've said in previous videos, there's so many things I don't know, there's so many gaps in my knowledge, for example, altered stuff. Like if you've got a D7, when do you play, regular D7 stuff as opposed to altered stuff, altered 7 stuff? And I'm happy to report, I think I'm finally coming to grips with that. Now I have an idea, like yesterday when I was failing miserably on If I Should Lose You, or trying to compose a solo, I at least knew, that needs to have some altered stuff over it. All right, so I guess that's a small win.
Well, let me ask you, Gabriel, what is altered? And now I can ask you in the chat, what is altered? Because the funny thing is, in the workshop, there was confusion about this as well, right? Because we were talking about the line. I was teaching everyone a line to play on top of a dominant chord. So we're doing exercise, 28 guitar players, not 24 guitar players. And I was teaching them a line, and we were taking that through all of me. And it was a major 7 arpeggio up. I'm not sure I'm in tune, but who cares? It's jazz, So if E7, and I said, let's play major 7 arpeggio up, D major 7. And then let's do an altered line down, I said. And then in the break, somebody came to me and said, no, that's not really altered. I said, what do you mean? I said, it's not altered. I said, it is altered. So you want to make a bet? I said, do you mean it's not the altered scale? I said, yes. Well, I said, yes, okay. It is not the altered scale, but it's still altered. Because, and it's not a matter of opinion, right? It's just a fact that altered just refers to the 9 and the 13 of extensions of the chord. Because altered is not a scale. Of course, there is an altered scale, but altered is the name for a certain color of dominant chord. And it's the dominant chord that has a flat 9 and a flat 13. So if I have D7, right, and I play the flat 9, E flat, and a flat 13, now I'm playing an altered chord. So the answer, Gabriel, was flat 9, flat 13. If I play 9 and 13, I'm playing a normal dominant. Or some people call it mixed lead in sharp 11. Or mixo sharp 11. If I play a flat 9 and a normal 13, I'm playing an octatonic sound. And yes, there's an octatonic scale, but I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to the sound. And if I'm playing a 9 and a flat 13, I'm playing a whole tone sound. That's the name for it. Yes, there is a whole tone scale, but I'm not referring to the scale. So when I do this line, yes, it's not an altered scale, because the altered scale wouldn't have these notes. There's chromaticism in it, for instance. But there is a flat 9. Sorry, here. So that means it's altered. Now, technically, you could say it could also be octatonic, because it also has a flat 9. Yes, that's true. But usually when we only play flat 9, we usually say altered. If you want to play octatonic, you actually also really have to play the 13. Now, actually, the 13 is there, right? Because maybe this is more of an octatonic sound. But I see the C sharp more as the end of the D major 7 arpeggio. And I see actually the E7 line starting here. And it sounds to me like an altered line. So that's why there's confusion. There's altered scales, but there's also just the color altered. And when I say altered, I'm always referring to the color. Because frankly, I don't use the altered scale. Never. I never use the altered scale. I either use a Phrygian dominant scale, or I use a six-note scale that's derived from the altered scale. But I never use the altered scale per se. So when I say altered, I could never talk about the scale. I talk about the color, and otherwise I'd have to say the altered scale. Right? Okay, that's a little theory rant.
Win. There we go. All right, another change. Not really a change, but I had a lengthy conversation with Christiaan.
When you play that, well, you can play it in any dominant chord, but best or a situation where really it's kind of necessary is when the dominant resolves to a minor chord, which is the next letter in the circle fourth. So if I have E7, the next letter will be A. So if it goes to A minor, then usually you play altered on that E7. Now when it goes to A major, then you don't really have to play altered. You could play altered, but you can also play any of the other colors. Now, when it goes to minor, you could also play any of the other colors, but usually altered seems to make the most sense. That's one of the situations, but that's the most common situation.
Van-Hemert. I thought it was going to be about 30 minutes. It ended up being about an hour and 45.
Oh, it's a conversation. Yeah.
Really great. If you want to see the unedited conversation, it's on my channel, and I'll link it in the description. Christiaan also took the conversation and edited it down, and then he reacted to our convo, which is actually really interesting to see his thoughts on what we were saying.
I will link.
There's a link to that.
Of course, there's a link to the original video in the description, and then I will link those 2 videos he's talking about as well. So there's one video where I have a conversation through Zoom, unedited on his channel, and then there is another video on my channel where I made a shorter version of it and I give some more thoughts.
In the description as well. So he's reacted to my progress reports in the past, and we've messaged a bunch of times on Discord, but we finally had a chance to sit down and talk, which is really nice. I mean, what can I say? He's very generous with his time and knowledge, and he seems to genuinely want people in his Discord to just get better.
I do.
So I spent hours making a massive list of timestamps of everything we talked about in my unedited video, again, the one that's on my channel. So just to give you a little preview, things we talked about, there's lots of me gushing over his books, of course.
Not
practice,
paid, by the way.
how it doesn't look like anything. Talked about his violin
I mean, I didn't pay him to gush about my books. But you know, the funny thing is I was in Stuttgart, of course. There were a bunch of people that were in my Discord. There are like 12, 13 people that are already part of my Discord. There was lots of people that owned 1 or several of my books. And it's just funny to see how that community grows and how it is working. There was not one single jazz super grandmaster. The highest level that was there was a 3rd level. So that would be a JCM, Jazz Candidate Master. Now I have to say, I want to say this Jazz Candidate Master, he's called Dr. Kai in my Discord, is extremely good. He became so good in a year. Like last year, or 1.5 years actually. I saw him for the last time in another workshop 1.5 years ago. And he was playing okay, had some nice stuff. But he really dove into my book. I don't know what he did, but he even memorized like page numbers of phrases. And he was playing one after another solo. That was just amazing stuff. Lots of phrases of mine that I actually don't even play. Like, I was like, what the hell, dude? How did you manage to do this? And he was like, no. You know, it's like, I'm just trying out. There's no way. I don't know how he did that, but I told him, you're crazy that you didn't level up yet to the highest level. You could do it like this. He said, yeah, no, I know, but he has a busy job and stuff. So when he practices, he just practices the phrase he likes, which is totally valid. But I think he needs more of a higher profile because he's a really good player. amazing stuff. And lots of the vocabulary that he uses comes from my books. But it's so fun to see because he uses it in a different way. He uses a different selection from the books that I use. Because again, lots of the phrases in my books are new to me too. And most of them, especially book 3 and 4, over 90% of those phrases I don't play myself. They are in the books. I love them. I can play them, but I don't really use them. But he was using a lots of phrases from the books that I don't use, combined with other stuff that he already knows, and he sounds completely different from me. But of course, I recognize the vocabulary. I appreciate that he's using it that way. But everyone else, I think there was one jazz master, like first level. The rest didn't level yet, and there were lots of people that have a lot of trouble leveling. They told me it's so difficult. I find it hard. And then the next question is always like, how much do you practice this? And it's like, no, I try to do it like 2 times a week. That's the problem, right? If you want to do these exercises, you need to practice every day for at least an hour. And then it's still going to take you like 3 or 4 months to do one exercise. And there's 7, and they get progressively harder sometimes. Yeah, but it's book 2, yes, because triplets come in, like Gabriel says. And now you might say, well, that's unreasonable, Christiaan. Why are you asking that of people who buy a book? No, you don't have to. You don't have to. You can do it any way you want. But one of the reasons behind this book is to show you what real practice is and show you a pathway to becoming good, which is basically just practicing a lot and give you a way to practice a lot. But it doesn't really matter if you use my books. You have to just practice a lot. But that's where it becomes difficult for people because they don't lack the motivation. So that's also where the books comes in. It tries to give you this motivation because of the gamification. Yeah.
Schedule as a child, his history as a transcriber, how the Rosenberg trio used to tell him to sit out of songs because he wasn't good enough and or fast enough, which is really interesting.
Yeah, true.
How practicing 2 hours a day is barely enough for gypsy jazz. How much he practices.
It's better than nothing, Gabriel. Listen, in the workshop, there's people, they all love it, right? And they really want it. And I see them look with big eyes when I was with Gizmo Gav, we demonstrate stuff. At one point, we demonstrated what it feels like to play at 320 beats per minute, right? And then I see them look like when we play like it's magic. And this is kind of a magic thing because, I mean, it's really far out of reach of what they're capable of, and it seems impossible. But the big difference, what separates us from them, is the amount of hours spent with the instrument, just practicing, just raw practice. The difference is so massive, right? We're talking about people that maybe have the time to put in 2 hours a week compared to me that I practice 4 or 6 hours a day. Like today, I practiced all day until I started making the stream. And I bet that after the stream is finished, and then maybe I go eat something, drink something, I'm going to play some more. It's just I want to do it also. Of course, I also have the luxury to do it. It's my job. But that's the main difference. It's not so much a talent thing or some skill gap or something, some magical thing or some age thing even. Because, I mean, Gizmo started when he was 6, and I started playing guitar when I was 31. And I'm not saying we're at the same level, but it's not super far apart or something. I mean, I can play with Gizmo fine. We can play the same amount of exact songs. My solos sound fine. It's a different concept from Gizmo. Gizmo does other things. But we both spent an insane amount of hours on it.
My history with gypsy jazz guitar, how I learned gypsy picking.
Yours for the low price of 8 hours a day for 10 years. That's right. Right. My book doesn't change that. You still have got to put in those hours. The only thing that's changed that the book serves to do is gives you a way to do it, some motivation to do it, a methodology to do it, a community to do it in. The Discord now it's like 660 people. It's really growing really fast. There's lots of people that are struggling with it. So this all helps, I think.
Spoiler, I learned it from Gypsy Picking
Hello,
by
Joel.
Michael Horowitz, the book. He asked me, how long do you think it'll take to learn how to improvise? And I cleared it from confusion because I think it was his last reaction to his reaction to my last progress report. He thought that I was under the impression it would take like a month to learn how to improvise, right? Oh, now that I've been through book 2, I'll just learn how to improvise in a month. then we'll be good to go. So I made it very clear that is not what I was thinking.
I'm happy.
Let's see. He explained Christoph changes, altered phrases. He explained soloing over Sweet Sue. It was what I was working on at the time of our conversation. Gave a bunch of great demonstrations. And then he told me to forget everything that he just said, which is kind of funny. We talked about how creativity is not a concern for me right now. How Stockello gets excited about licks.
You know, creativity is not really a concern of me too. Because, of course, I use the word creative, like he's a creative player, that sounds very creative, or I use that word. But it is very abstract in what it means when we talk about jazz soloing. I mean, it's abstract anyway, right? Because it's all subjective. What one finds creative, another one doesn't find. I'm sure you can measure it in some way, in some fields. But with jazz improv, it's difficult to say. I have a kind of a vague idea of feeling what it is, but I'm not concerned with it. I'm only concerned with, well, timing and flow and good vocabulary. But the good vocabulary is not something I'm concerned with actively. It's just, well, I'm concerned with it when I practice. Then I'm actively concerned with it. When I play, it's passive, right? It just has to come out. But creativity is not really on the list anywhere. I'm not looking for a creative solo. I'm just looking for a good solo. And I know that creativity is not an ingredient or parameter that is in that list of good solos. That is just a perception of someone that's listening to it. They might find it creative. They might not. If you if you know all the phrases in my books, or like just all my phrases, you might not find it very creative. For instance, I know every phrase that Stockello plays, more or less. It's very rare that he plays something that I don't know, because I've described more than 100 solos of Stockello. So I know his vocabulary. So it's hard to surprise me with for Stockello, it's hard to surprise me with any vocabulary, right? I probably know it. I even know how to play it. It won't sound as good as when he does it, but I know how to play it. So I think in that situation for me, it's hard to say, oh, that's very creative solo. But I still say that sometimes. Why? Because it's the way he connects the phrases. It's the way he embellishes the phrase or something, you know? But for someone else that has never heard Stockello before, let's say, or he never heard Gypsy Jazz before, he might hear that and he might not see all the puzzle pieces, and he might find it super, super creative, right? So that's why creativity is not really high on my list. I'm not concerned with it. I don't think it's very important to concern yourself with when you're learning jazz, but even later in that stage of engaging with jazz, I'm sure it's very important. Hey, Joel. Your community is invaluable. Yeah, it is. I think it really is. I wish I had it when I was learning it. Well, I kind of had it, of course, in real life, but still, it's really nice. I love being in the Discord and seeing what people write. I see now, like, Jazz International Master Paul McAvoy is typing right now, you know? I wonder what it is. So if you're not in my Discord, please join. You don't have to buy a book to be in my Discord. There's lots of stuff there to explore without having to buy a book. Well, when you buy a book, there's lots more to explore, but still, lots of stuff to explore, to talk about, finding gems, watching videos of other people, uploading your own videos. Go be in that community of learning jazz. It's great. Joel Smith said, "Hi, Christiaan. Yeah, I am the one that's struggling." Well, you're not the only one. I've met lots of people that are struggling. So, but if you tell me what you're struggling with, or put it in Discord, you know, I think Gabriel just posted in the general channel, people that are struggling to ask him questions, because he's done it and he's logged everything he's done. So ask him about it, because actually he has more experience finishing, perfecting set exercise than I have, because I made the set exercises, I demonstrated parts of it, but I've never went the whole way, right? And he did it. He's one of the 8 persons that has done it.
That he never ends up playing, which is really interesting. How great players play the same things over every song.
Yeah.
The value of humility. And the really big one, he gave me a timeline, which is kind of cool. He says that he thinks I'll be confident in my ability to be okay, right? When I am in a gig situation, I'll be confident in my ability to be okay in 3 to 4 years. which I'm okay with, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he has a lot more.
Yeah. So what does it mean? Okay means that you. Yeah. It basically means that on most tunes, normal tunes. So I'm not talking about giant steps or. Now I'm not even talking about all the things you are. I'm just talking about like the normal the gypsy jazz tunes like Dinah and All of Me, Lady Be Good, minor blues, minor swing. I'm not talking about the super fast stuff even, like Joseph or the super fast stuff that's 260 and above. I'm just talking about the 150 to 250 range of normal tunes. Okay means that you can play those tunes in a completely acceptable way. It's not maybe ready for a CD recording or a video where you teach the solo, right? But it's good enough to sit in the jam having fun and having other people enjoy it, or people that are learning the style watching you and think, oh, I wish I could play like that. Just that is enough, you know. I know that feeling very well, right? Like, I remember going to a jam session when I was just starting out. Now remember, when I was starting out, I was already a kick-ass violin player, right? Well, I was a good violin player. I played with the Rosewood Trio. So I knew what it was to perform at the highest level. And then I went with my guitar to a jam session. I sucked, basically. And then there was just a guy who could kind of play. It was not nearly the level of Stochelo or the other people that I was used to hearing when I was playing violin. But I was like, if I could just get to that level, right, I'd be happy. Of course, when I got to that level, a couple of years later, I wasn't happy at all. Now I'm kind of happy. I still want to get better, but I'm kind of happy. But that's what I mean. Okay is you're that guy. You're that guy that can play. You know, it sounds okay. He's having fun. He can go to all the jam sessions. Everybody appreciates him being in the jam session because he knows the tunes. He can play okay solos. Okay, it's not the greatest solos ever, but it's perfectly fine. When you see this guy walking by, it's like, hey man, come on, let's jam. I want him to be that guy on guitar. And that's what I'm talking about. But your confidence of being okay is being that guy. That's going to take I think for Gabriel, another 3 to 4 years of 2 hours a day practice. Now, if he would ramp that practice up to, let's say, 4 to 6 hours a day, then it could happen in 2 years, maybe 1 year even. So, just so you know, Gabriel. Yeah. Gabriel says, hey, Joel, let me know if you want to chat. Guys, you should chat. Maybe do a Zoom call and record it. It might be interesting for other people in Discord if you want to do it, of course.
More experience than I do, so it's kind of interesting to put a number on it because I haven't. People have asked me, do you have a timeline? You know, when do you think you can start gigging, and when do you think you'll be good and all that? And I'm just really hesitant because it's not something that I can tell. Right? I don't have experience in doing this, so yeah, it was kind of interesting that he could put a number on it like that, 3 to 4 years. All right, another change. I mean, not really a change, but in line with talking to Christiaan-van-hemert, I had conversations with some other musicians from the Discord. One of the videos is on my site. There's a conversations playlist. It's just one other guy. And then I spoke to someone else from the Discord. I think you talked to Beck, so he's level 5, I think, VHSM, Van-Hemert System Master. That's similar to the FIDE Master in chess. He's a great player. So he's actually a very creative player. Yeah, I would say he's very creative, in the sense that he seems to be very aware of what he's playing, and then he's trying to make that sound as tasteful as possible. We didn't record it though. We spoke a couple of times, and they helped me out with Sweet Sue. Again, I was trying to solo over Sweet Sue at that point. Got into some other stuff. One of the guys is a musician in New Orleans, which must be amazing.
Yes, okay.
And just everyone's very helpful, supportive, encouraging. And,
what's his name again? I know who he is, where it is. What's his name? What's his name in the Discord we were talking about? Forgot his name, but yeah. I don't think he has a level yet. I think he didn't send me any set exercise yet. But I know he lives in New Orleans and he gigs regularly.
It's just really cool to have a community where if I have a question, someone will say, yeah, let's try to solve it right now.
Yes, Chief, yes.
All right, another change. Chief, I have not been very good about posting on the community tab on my channel. And in the community tab, what I like to do is I screenshot
Chief Big
comments that people
that's
leave on videos and my responses to the comments, and just have them all in one place. And I've been very lazy with it, so I hope to get back to that.
Chief Big Easy is very good at summarizing some point I made, and then he makes long posts. Says, I think you talked about this and this and this. Maybe you could expand a little bit more on this subject. Is very helpful for me for the live streams like this. Sometimes talk about questions in Discord.
Soon. And I respond to everything, good and bad, including someone said, what's the point of making music that sounds like AI-generated jazz? And I know you're not supposed to feed the trolls, but couldn't help myself. And we had a back and forth for a little while.
You know, in 5 years, you could say that's about anything. It's like, what's the point of being a teacher? There's already AI teachers much better. That you can say that about anything, so that doesn't mean anything. Might now mean something maybe because some people made some just with AI. But in 5 years, this means nothing, that everything can be done with AI. So I also have very specific thoughts about AI. I'm not going to share it here. But for one, I'm not completely not afraid of it. Probably because of my experience with Chess World. But chess, like the game, I'll talk about it in another video.
So yeah, I'll try to be better about that, but I have not been posting in the community tab. The other big change that I mentioned at the beginning is that I'm not going to be playing guitar for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
but he's
I'm
back
going
now,
on a trip,
so
and this thing will just be extra luggage. I'm staying at my sister's house, so I don't really want to be making a racket there. I also don't want the pressure of feeling like I need to practice. Right, this trip is for family and some other stuff, but
man, you probably must have been bored, man.
Maybe
I'm so
if I were
bored
an
when I
actual
don't have a
gigging
guitar.
musician,
I want
it
to
might
play.
be different. I'd probably bring it, keep up my practice routine, but I'm not. So I decided, you know what? Zero guilt, zero pressure. Not going to bring the guitar, or even try to acquire one when I'm there. I'm just going to leave it be. So kind of in line with that, I'm not going to have a chance to practice today or tomorrow because I have to get ready to go and I have a few other things to take care of. So yeah. Now, just about done. Where I want to be a month from now. One of the staple questions of the progress report. So, a month from now, I hope I get back from my trip and get back to practicing immediately.
Yes.
Because trips can completely
the first thing I do when I enter the house.
This has happened to me a lot.
I mean, I went to Stuttgart. Of course, I was teaching there. I was jamming all day, and then I came home, and the first thing I did was unpack my guitar and play guitar.
Right? You go on a trip, you get comfortable not going to the gym, not eating a clean diet, not reading or studying or waking up early. Right? You get used to things like not finding time to practice your instrument for a couple hours a day. So I want to get back here and start practicing immediately. 2 hours a day, just like I've been doing for a little over 6 months now. I also hope that the trip is going to give my hands a chance to really heal, like whatever issues are remaining.
Did it work?
Hope that's taken care of. And the other thing, the other place I want to be a month from now is I want to be posting on the community tab again more consistently. I don't even know if many people look at it, but I enjoy scrolling through and just being reminded of all the interesting comments that people leave.
Maybe I'll do it too.
Speaking of which, if you have comments or questions, drop me a message. I respond to all of them. Like I said, good or bad, encouraging and critical. So yeah, that's all. Until next time.
So that was the video with Gabriel. Nice progress report again. Interesting stuff. Gave me lots of ideas and thoughts. So if you don't know his channel, go check it out. Subscribe. Give him a like. There's a link to his channel, the original video in the description. And let's wait until next month. Maybe he will ramp up his practice to 2 hours and 15 minutes. And then in a year it will be 4 hours. Let's see. Okay, thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.